All right, here are some examples of how to find domain and range. I'm going to go through this example, this example, this example, this example, this example, and then I'll go over your two specific questions. So feel free to fast forward to those if you'd like. But basically, what it's important to know is that when they say domain, they are referring to the x value of the graph. When they are referring to range, they are referring to the y value of the graph. Okay, so if I was to just say range is always, where's the graph on the y-axis, okay? So your range is up and down, and then your domain is your x, so your domain is left to right. And then we also need to talk about how to write it in MyMathLab. Oh, we're not doing that one. Ignore that one. Good? Okay, so where is my graph on the x-axis? And where's my graph on the y-axis? Good? For this five-sided figure, what I do to find the range, what I do to find the domain is I just draw, if I don't have arrows, okay, so it's completely different if you have arrows. One of your examples was a circle, and the other one had arrows. So if it's the circle, what I would do is just for domain from negative x to positive x, I would draw a line. So the most negative this becomes is a -3. X is -3, right? It stops there. And then over here, it stops at x is +3, okay? So what they said is your domain is between -3, or x is greater than or equal to -3, x is less than or equal to 3, right? So basically they're saying it's all of this. But the way MyMathLab wants to say it is, MyMathLab wants you to write it in interval notation. So the interval notation of -3 is less than or equal to x, it's less than or equal to 3, is brackets, -3, +3, close the brackets. Okay, and that's your domain because your domain is your x values. Good? Range is going to be your y values. So the highest this goes on my y-axis is, whatever this is, 4. And then the lowest it goes is -4. So y is 4 and y is -4. Oh, I'm sorry, it was a 3. I have terrible vision for like these tiny things at my age. And MyMathLab does not help. Those are teensy tiny graphs. Okay, so between y equals -4 and y equals 3, so the way that they write that is y, that's a mistake. Y is between -4 and 3, so -4 is less than or equal to y, which is less than or equal to 3. But the way I would write this is between, start with your -4 to 3 with a bracket, okay? So that's where it is. It's from -4 to 3 on your y. It's from -3 to 3 on your x. So what we're talking about is just the part of the graph that is colored both yellow and orange, right? So that's the part of the graph between -3 and 3 and -4 and 3. Domain is your x, range is your y. Let's go to this circle, much like the circle you had. So my domain is always my x, so I want to start over here at -2. X is -2. All the way up until the end of that circle. The circle ends at +2. X is +2. So my domain is going to be -2 to 2. Good. And then my range is my y value. So this goes from, I guess I should start down here, from 0, it's right at 0, y equals 0, to y equals 4, okay? So that's going to look like 0, comma 4 as interval notation. Good? Okay. Now we're talking about arrows, okay? So when your graph has an arrow on it, that means the arrow means continues forever in this pattern or in this fashion or continues this way forever, okay? So no matter how far I zoom out, there's still gonna be an arrow going towards this direction. There's still gonna be an arrow going towards this direction. It's a line that goes on forever, okay? So again, we're doing domain first. Domain is our x. So from negative x, right? We start with a negative and then we go to the positive. So from negative x, all I have is an arrow. An arrow means, we should keep with the color scheme. This arrow means it goes on towards negative infinity, right? And this arrow means it goes on towards positive infinity on the x-axis, okay? We're never going to come to the end according to the x-axis. They put r for all real numbers. I'm going to say from negative infinity to infinity. There's nowhere that the graph isn't on the r, or sorry, there's nowhere the graph is not on the x-axis. Same with the y-axis. So here is positive y, here's negative y, but that same arrow means it goes forever in the negative infinity direction for y and forever in the positive infinity direction for y. So my y is negative infinity to infinity as well, okay? Number 6 is a little bit different because this is 2 arrows that go up and down forever and left to right forever, right? However, number 6, my arrows are going to the left and to the right, so negative infinity and positive infinity on the x-axis, but on the y-axis, I do have an end, right? I have one ending on the y-axis. It does not go lower than y equals -5, but it does go to positive infinity for the y. Do you see that? So, whereas here, my y was negative infinity to positive infinity, here my y is -5 to positive infinity. And that's for range because y is always range. My domain, my x-axis, tells me that this arrow is going towards negative infinity on my x, right? This arrow is going towards positive infinity on my x. So those same arrows for the domain are from negative infinity to positive infinity because neither one stops, right? On the x-axis, neither of these stop. They go towards negative infinity and they go towards positive infinity. But on the y-axis, it does stop. It stops at -5 and goes towards positive infinity for y. Good? Alternately, if you have something like this, this is going to go both up for the range, positive infinity for the range, negative infinity for the range. For the domain, it's going to start at 0 and only go towards positive infinity. It never goes below 0 on the domain, okay? So domain is your x. It's not going to go past 0. X equals 0. So it's going to go from 0 to positive infinity because this one means positive infinity. This one means positive infinity. But for my y, this one means positive infinity, but this one means negative infinity. It is going down in terms of y. Good. So our range is all real numbers, which is negative infinity to positive infinity. Okay. Another thing, important thing to note about when they ask you the question is how to write it. Okay. So when we determine, let's first determine what our answer is. God, you see how small this is. What on earth is this? This is x equals -3. And then this is x equals a +1. Pretty sure. Pretty sure. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 1. Okay, I'm going to say that that's true. All right, so our circle is, I know these aren't straight. Our circle is between -3 and a +1 on my x, okay? Your x is always your what? Your x is always your domain, okay? So my domain is going to be -3, 1. My range is on my y. -2, -6. Good. So my y values are between -2, are between -6 and -2. My domain is my x, so my range is my y. So those are my answers because I don't have any arrows. So I'm just containing the circle. The circle is between -6 and -2. The circle is between -3 and 1. Sorry. Make sure you understand what it's saying. The domain of the relation is the interval. An interval is more than 1 point. Okay? So when they say interval, they mean more than 1 point. And then single value, alternately, is just 1 point, okay? So if you only have, for example, there's only this point, then my range, ignore all of these, okay? It's just this point. My range for only that point is, my range for only that point is 3. And my domain for only that point is 1. That's weird. That domain should be 1, but 1's not even on there. Domain is 1. Range is 3. Good. So that's for a single point. Same. The range of the relation is the single value, or the range of the relation is the interval. So because these are not just one dot, you're going to choose the interval, okay? So the range, the domain of the relation is the interval. The domain of the relation is the interval -3, 1. Don't put it there. And then the range of the relation is the interval -6, -2. Don't write it there because a single value just means 1 point. Good. Let's do this one. Oh no! I didn't cut and paste the photo of this one. Oh, sorry. Okay, so that one is for that picture. I just read it wrong. Okay. Well, that answer goes down here below the photo. We got the right answer. And then the range of the relation is -2, -6. Good. You got -2, -6. I would just write it as -6, -2 because you want to start with the smaller number and put brackets around it. So good job here and good job here. Good. So put the brackets around it. You're not wrong. You got it. Start with the smaller number, go to the bigger number, which is confusing when you're doing negatives. So let's go back to this guy. This guy, what is the domain and what is the range? Remember, domain is your x. Okay, so let's start with our x. Our domain is between 0, I think, and 4. This is miserable. Okay, zoom in and make sure I have the right numbers. But basically, I would say the domain is on the interval 0, 4. It's not a single point, so that's the domain. And then the range are my y values. So where does it stop on y? Well, this means it's going towards negative infinity on y, right? And this means it's going towards positive infinity on y. But it showed you that it's going to stay between those two, so that's why the domain can stay at 0, 4, because we know it's going to go flip around. It's going to continue in this fashion forever. Okay, so the domain is 0, 4. The range, however, is negative infinity to infinity, and you want to choose the interval choice.